In this stealth game set in the feudal Japan era, the player is a ninja warrior who is on a quest to avenge the destruction of her village and the death of her family. The player starts off having just landed after dusk at the docks on the warlord's town. At first you
That
must
looks too
navigate
deep
the
to
farm
swim
on
in.
the
I would
outskirts of
surely
the
drown.
village. This sets the learning curve for the game's mechanics of stealth and distraction. Fighting is not an option, and the player must avoid the samurai's patrols and the wandering ronin. Sight and sound is key, as the guards can hear you as well as see you. The only way to be silent is to crouch your way forward. This gives a tense experience, as guards are certainly quicker than a crouching ninja, and the player must decide when it is safe to walk, make noise, and potentially alert the nearby guards. As the player enters the farm, you are guided towards the entrance to the town, using guard patrols and chickens. The chickens effectively block the player from wandering off, as they are scared by your presence and make noise that will attract unwanted attention. You approach a choke point of a bridge and a checkpoint to enter the village. As you cannot swim across the river, you must cross the bridge. Here there are several ways to enter, either vaulting over the gate or climbing up the guide rope onto one of the watchtowers. Inside the town, the player makes their way through the shop district, again guided by the angry chickens, forcing the player to consider their path of movements carefully. Here you have safe spaces such as lockers, chests and carts that the player can hide inside until the patrols have passed. As it starts to rain and gets heavier as you approach the dense residential area, this amplifies your footsteps as you walk through puddles. There are many ronin walking around as well as patrols, which makes a rooftop progression advantageous. Jumping from building to building or walking across the clotheslines to avoid detection, the player makes their way towards the castle and a more open area with gardens, making the area daunting as there is now limited cover. As you approach the wall, again there are a couple of ways to navigate the final stage, a watchtower or the heavily guarded security gate. If the guards see you, they will come after you and you must avoid them or be captured. Smoke bombs can be dropped to distract the guards and make them lose sight of you. The bombs come in limited supply, however, so use them wisely. If the guards hear you, they will investigate by going to where they last heard the noise, so either don't be there or use a shuriken to throw near them, causing a nearby noise distraction. Again, these are in limited supply. Both the bombs and the shuriken can be replenished by conducting a takedown on the guards. Patrols drop shurikens and Ronin drops bombs. But taking down guards from behind is very risky, as the guards also have peripheral vision, best to avoid them at all costs. Firstly, I created a design document which details the project in full, including a design pillar and a progression loop. As the project proceeded, the GDD became a living document, changing as the game progressed, encompassing design theory and iterations within the game. The two design pillars I focused on are stealth, aiming to get off to the end of the level without being seen, and parkour, or ninja movement, to overcome obstacles by gymnastic feats. Due to the characteristics of the protagonist, these design pillars fit nicely, complementing each other. The core loop involves observing the lay of the land and the patrol's movements before moving on to the next position, moving quickly when necessary and hiding when required. I researched feudal villages in Japan, towns, garrisons and castles to get a feel for what these areas would be like to start the level design. I used the outlying farm to give a starter zone for the player before increasing the difficulty in the town. The Japanese towns in those days were almost thrown together with houses facing different directions, not like the planned levels of today's streets. My level is inspired by several blueprints, plans, maps of villages and castles that have been preserved to date. Totten said that these spaces can create exciting gameplay scenarios when used in proper sequence, moving from one hiding spot to another in a stealth game. I have created both confined areas and open areas that will make moving and hiding a tense but enjoyable experience, and with the design based on a single theme, then all of the elements I have created will reinforce one another as they are working towards this common goal, as Shell inspires. The core mechanic is stealth, using hiding techniques, moving quietly or loudly, or using distraction tools such as smoke bombs and shuriken. Also parkour movement, which has been widely used by ninjas in modern media. This facilitates many of the blueprints used. I made additions to the third-person character to enable them to vault, climb, balance and crouch, using a mixture of animations and blank space to allow for distance on objects. The game is set in third person, but when hiding, the character changes its transform to match that of the hiding location, and the viewport then switches to a first person. You can then see from inside the opening in the doors to know that it is safe to leave. A similar action is employed when opening and closing doors. The character movement is disabled, and the mouse is free to move the door. I have made additions to the first-person movement input and added footsteps to the character. This was completed by creating and adding physical materials to the various growing materials, e.g. grass. This would then play different footstep noises depending on the ground the character was on, with sound attenuation and noise notify, so the guards can hear the player. Later, towards the end of the project, feedback I received showed me that it would be better if the samurai also made footsteps. For this I created a new animation with a sound anim notify attached, and linked to an anim notify blueprint I created. Sound annotation was attached to that, so the player would then know if the guards are walking towards or away from the player at any time. The guards have set waypoints that they walk between, and AI thought process controlled by behavior tree. The Ronin have a similar pattern, but have no waypoints, just random locations set by a distance variable in the tree. The NPCs also have hearing and peripheral vision, so he will notice you at the corner of his eye, thus making it difficult to kill and should be avoided to be safe. To counter this, there are shuriken that can be thrown which makes a noise, notifies the guard who will investigate the sound location. Similarly, if you have been seen, you can drop a smoke bomb to allow you to escape the field of vision. This spawns a dynamic mesh modifier volume that is set quite high, so the guards will choose the less expensive way to get to the player. This will often mean losing sight of the character, and the guard will then start the search pattern part of their behaviour. If the smoke bomb is released in a relatively confined area, the guards will most likely walk straight through the smoke, as now the more expensive way would be to walk around the building. You start off with 10 of each, but these can quickly diminish, so I created spawnable pickups to add to the gadgets and have them dropped by the guards. Patrol drops shurikens and Ronin drops smoke bombs. The player has to offset trying to kill a guard to get a distract tool, which is difficult, to trying to complete the level with no distractions available. This is reflected in the top left of the UI, which the numbers will increase or decrease depending on gadgets available. When it reaches 0, you can't use them anymore. The diegetic sound of the NPCs adds to the anxiety of the player as the footsteps get louder as they approach, and non-diegetic, through the music changing as you approach the initial choke points, add to the overall tension of the level. Two mechanics didn't make it into the final game, due to the flow of the level. As it began to grow, the sliding mechanic became just a nice touch that had no purposeful use, which was a shame as it was one of my favourites. Also, there was going to be a bow arrow mechanic for killing guards, but I felt this was taking the game away from the core pillar. I would change the game. The majority of the original design made it into level, creating the experience I was intending for the audience. I have left the two mechanics mentioned above inside the game and can be reconnected at a later date if this level was to develop. These will potentially be skills gained as you progress through the levels. I feel the level could be improved by having dark zones, places where guards' visibility will be blocked due to the level of light. This could be completed by more complex eye or by placing collision blocks in areas where there is variable light, setting the closing boxes to block the guard's patrols. I feel that this would enhance the stealth in the shadows aspect of the game.